what does ownership mean to you? Not just as a business, but of influence, identity, and legacy.
So for me, Terry, ownership means control of my narrative, control of my destiny, and control of my contributions to the world. Not necessarily just ownership of my name on a piece of paper. Our names have been on a lot of pieces of paper and still been able to be taken away and off of those pieces of paper. But owning my narrative and the influence that I have in the culture and in my community, that means far more to me. That's what ownership means to me. And claiming space and rooms that I wasn't supposed to be in, that I was told I wasn't supposed to be in. And I have proven my space in that room and how it does belong to me and people like me. That's ownership, because you can easily put my name on a paper and never welcome me into a space. But me having that, walking into that room and owning that space personally and making a way for people like me to walk in those same spaces and now it be accepted, that's what ownership is to me, a shift in culture, like advocacy, having equality within a space, understanding that now this is the next generation, not necessarily what they seen it as before, completely shifting the culture and making an influence and an impact in the space. That's what I feel like ownership is to me.
Okay. I mean, that was really good. And I go on mute when you start talking just to
It's like, what
ensure
happened?
that, yeah, just to ensure that you are heard crystal clear, that, there is no fogginess to your voice, because your voice matters. And you said a lot, right? And that was powerful. But if there was someone that is, there's someone that's listening, right? And what I'm going to ask for those who are listening right now, go ahead and share this YouTube. It allows us to get this conversation out in these internet streets, so that
Mhm.
I personally believe that exposure leads to expansion. There's a lot of people who, they're rarely hearing these types of conversations. I'm sure for those of us who are here, or I can talk about myself, when I go to family events and and we're sitting around a table, we're not often talking or having this particular conversation. And I believe the more we can have the conversation and the more we invite people into the conversation, the prayer is that we get a buy into the conversation, and that these statistics will then change. These gaps will narrow. The wealth gap has always been wide. At what point do stop widening and start narrowing? And I believe that this is one of the ways to do it. So you said a lot about and one of the most profound things that you said, which is, people, it's not just about your name being on a piece of paper, because people can erase your name. But so if that is the case, where do you believe that your name, because here's the thing. I believe that, God has a way of making a name linger, right?
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter what people try to do, that name will constantly be a hallmark, it'll be a staple. And, of course, I think you would concur there are several ways that can be a reality. So, besides being on your name being on a piece of paper, what are some other ways that your name can be cemented in the hearts, the minds, and the culture of people, and and won't be easily erased?
It's through your impact. So exactly what I said, like owning the space, right? There's plenty of spaces that, so for just speaking from what I do as a CEO, I literally walk into spaces that I know that the people, the business owners that are within my network say that they can't be in. They say that's above where they are. They say they're not ready for that. So I make that way and I put myself in that space and show them that we do belong in that space. And I put my imprint in that space. So now I am able to welcome the people who thought that they didn't belong in that space in there to be uniquely them. And bringing a culture of those businesses into those spaces. That imprint will never get erased, because as long as it's a positive imprint, it's going to be welcome and it's going to bring change. Now, if I was a person that go into these spaces and I made a negative imprint, now we want to erase that, right? But the purpose is for us to go into these spaces and own it and show them how much they need us in these spaces, how much we belong in these spaces, and fully take ownership of the space by bringing our presence. A lot of times people speak about how we are not included, not welcome, not invited. But what if they don't even know who to invite? If we're not letting them know that we're here, who are they sending the invitation to? You have to make a point to introduce yourself to those individuals, to those rooms.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the other end of the continuum because we know a lot of people who show up, and here's what I say of one of the reasons why I believe that we haven't totally cornered the market. And that may have, that may have different meanings for different people, right? But here is one of the things that I've seen that's been problematic. We put a lot of emphasis on looking good when we show up, but not enough on actually being good financially, mentally, emotionally, physically, right? Our temperament is not, is temporal, right? And so it's just enough to get in the room. It's not just enough to, would you say it's not just enough to get in the room? It's not just enough to get the invitation and for them to know who to invite. But let's take that a step further because historically, unfortunately, Black folks have been looked at as only good for entertainment. So even being invited into some rooms, for some is just to check a box. But how do the
Mhm.
impact you go just beyond, showing up and being in the room?
So I always say, be ready for what you ask for. And a lot of times with my industry, because I usually get put in a box of Rosebud is a co-working space, Rosebud is salon suite. I had to learn the language of the rooms that I was walking into to educate them on my language. I'm not conforming to their language. I needed to educate myself on what their language was so that once I understand their language, now I can translate it to mine. A lot of our issue is that we walk in thinking they need to just understand us and they need to talk like us because this is how we talk and this is how we've been brought up. No, you can't just walk in into another culture because that's what it is. It's a whole different culture. You can't just walk in without first educating yourself on that culture, so now you can maximize the experience of you being in that room and own your space because now you understand both. And that's where I feel like we lack a lot of times. That's where we need to prepare before we enter. Not necessarily just walking in and saying, I'm here, y'all. Give me the money because I look how I look. No, you need to understand the room, do your research, know who you walking in here to present to, knowing how you should present. Don't walk in presenting to, I can offer services to businesses who are just still in the hustle phase, but I'm walking into a room with seven figures. That's not how it works. I have to do my research before I walk in so that I know which language I'm using and educate myself to know both so that I won't walk in there lost. So being ready for what you asked for. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I saw you.
No, no, no. You're good. I love this conversation because we tend to veer here, but I'm just going to veer us in a different direction given the subject matter. But why aren't they being invited into our room? Why haven't we created the room and have people come into our room and talk on, language? I mean, we have made a lot of strides, praise God, but we still are lagging and we default to, I got to get myself ready to go into their room. But why we're
Oh,
not creating the room? Why aren't we, I have a coach that says, either make a way or create a way. Why aren't we the way? That's the heart of the matter. And so it's twofold. Why aren't we the way? And, what do we need to do to become the way and invite folks into our room? Position ourselves to be the lender, and not the borrower? How do we position ourselves to invite people in the room where we're the head and not the tail? How, like, so let's go that direction in this moment.
So in order to get there, Terry, again, you have to go find, you have to get them. They come and get us, right? They put themselves in our television. They put themselves in the advertisement where we are. We have to go where they are to bring them to our table. Just like they come to us where we are and bring us to their table. And that's where we want to be. We have to find out where they are to bring them to our table. We can't assume that they want to be here. We can't assume that they think that we're welcoming to them. Because in history, how often have they been afraid? Don't go here because you don't want to go here and know what's going to happen to you, or this room may not be accepting to you. Just the same feelings that we have felt. So we have to provide that welcoming environment and go to the neutral places where we can invite them into our space. So, for example, when I say go into these rooms, when I get into these rooms, I'm networking. I'm not begging for a space. I'm not begging for opportunity. I'm networking and building relationships to build up my social equity. Because once I have my social equity and these people are part of my social equity, now they are more welcoming to come on my ticket into my space. And now I am the head of that table. And they are in my space because I brought them there because they feel comfortable being there because of me. Now we do have a blended space.